This is the Seahawkers podcast, live and uncatfished. Although we're not really live, but we will be uncatfished. At least Adam will be. And joining me here to talk about the Seahawks mock game from this past weekend, a good buddy, Adam Emmert.
Dude, good to be here. And it's not just me, though.
I know. I was going to get there.
Yeah, I know.
Clinton's here too.
Yeah.
I'm here too, and we're sort of live, semi-live, right? We're doing pretty well here.
This live-ish to tape to post later, but that's just because StreamYard was being dumb, and we have other options.
If there's any StreamYard experts out there, once we get over 2 people, there's a ghost in the machine. We can't solve it quite yet, but we will.
We'll get it. We'll get there.
Yes, we will. We have to.
Well, we have a mock game to talk about this past week, and it's real football. Football season's here. We got unofficial passing stats that the Seahawks are putting out. And, there's nothing really more fun to me than reacting to a game that we didn't even get to see. We just got to see some highlights. We got to see some press conferences after the mock game. And we got the unofficial passing stats. Geno Smith, 10 of 19. 94 yards. Drew Lock, 18 of 27, 185 yards and a touchdown. And then there's Jacob Eason, starting quarterback 1 for week number 1, 3 of 6 for 22. We know that Jacob Eason is going to be QB1 now because he got so little time. They know what they have in Jacob.
Oh, that's definitely the reason. Of course,
did I get this right?
That's why. Yeah, 100%. They know what they have. Are you mocking me for my earlier take from the last pod? Because that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. But it was interesting because the 2 guys that are actually in the running, both Geno and Drew, both had a good crack with the first team here. And I don't know about you guys. I mean, Clinton, did you see or hear anything from what you saw that really stood out that maybe differentiated one from the other?
Yeah, I would say that, Big League Drew, Mountain Drew Manji, Drew Bach himself, just overall seemed to perform a heck of a lot better, boys. Went over the middle, completed more passes, had more zip, had more pizzazz, had more control, was more dynamic, I think, who is a Greg Bell used that term. So overall, seems like Drew Lock 1, Geno 0 thus far. That's my watching poor video take off of YouTube for one drive. So that is some heavy analysis.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, you got all the passes charted that you saw that he was over the middle and all that jazz, huh?
I don't have the passes charted, but I did find some bootleg YouTube video of one of the fans that was way up in the upper deck. Mm-hmm. And he actually, had a kind of an overall view, which was nice. And I watched that, and it's about as, you can take some from it. And really, I thought both quarterbacks, they both had a lot of rhythm on time, schemed up throws that they completed pretty well. And at the end of the day, that will get you so far. And if they can at least do that, then you can be a competitive regular season team. And whether that's Geno or Drew, I don't know that too many people care that much. But Pete, he seems to be really set on the Geno thing to me because they keep asking him about it. It's like, well, Geno hasn't done anything wrong. He does everything the right way. He does everything right. And then today or yesterday on Sunday, he got all the first team reps and Drew got all the second team reps, despite the fact that in theory, Drew outperformed Geno in that market.
You could say that he outperformed him in terms of statistics, but you heard Pete Carroll after the mock game say, well, Geno didn't really get as many opportunities either. So you already heard him. One, he did couch it in saying that he hadn't had a chance to watch the film because he was all over the field doing other things. But he did seem to make an excuse in that sense for Geno, saying that, he didn't get as many opportunities as Drew.
Yeah, my fear is starting to creep in that we're going to hit week 1, which is the perfect opportunity to play Drew Lock, right, against the team because of all the reasons. Because if you're going to lose, you might as well lose spectacularly, right? So, suck or be great. We were talking about earlier, great or suck, and don't get caught in that purgatory. And I feel like Geno Smith is almost like the QB definition of NFL purgatory.
But here's the thing.
Yeah,
I do want to say part of I've had a chance to refine some of my reasoning too for giving the reins to Geno to start the season, because I just think that, like you said, if you put in Drew in that opportunity of hope, okay, go take on your former team and you lose spectacularly, you have blown Drew Lock's confidence. Then I like the idea more of setting Drew up for success, giving Geno a couple games, and then 4 or 5 weeks in, okay, Drew, it's time to turn it over to you. And then you allow him to take it, hopefully for the rest of the season. But I think that sets Drew up confidence wise, and also, the team in terms of, because I do feel like the veterans behind would be more behind Geno to start the season.
So in your hierarchy of whose confidence you'd like to shatter first, you'd like to shatter Geno's first.
Yes.
And then Drew's.
Right.
Okay. Okay. No,
because I think it's more difficult to, well, for one, I think if you put Drew out there week 1, then that shatters Geno's confidence, because he kind of feels like he's the guy behind Russell Wilson. It's kind of his team moving forward. And so if you burst his bubble right away saying that he doesn't get to start against the guy he used to back up, then it'd be more difficult, I think, to go back to him. It's just, it works a little more seamlessly for me in my mind that Drew starts around week 5.
Yeah, I'm on the 180. We're so far,
unless there's one guy who's clearly better among the two.
Sure, but let's say they even stay like fairly on par, and like Drew is a smidgen better, and he seemed better. I think he's a better quarterback. I think he has more skill. All good.
He's more talented.
I think he's a better quarterback. And if he's a smidgen better throughout, but Geno gets a start, I think the exact opposite can happen, in the sense that you're dealing with a young quarterback who went through being 4-1 as a rookie, then a COVID year, then being quote unquote beat out by Teddy Bridgewater, where, again, Adam, you talk about it a lot. Bronco fans are like, I didn't see it. Like, it didn't seem like it was Teddy's team to go be mediocre with. Like, just let Drew do his things. His confidence was like just shattered last year by I think just bad management. I think you just put him, and I think it's the wrong move. And then you also shatter the confidence, in my opinion, of all the Seahawks fans who have a little bit of hope for this year. I realize, Adam, you don't think we have a chance in hell of making the playoffs this year. Brandon, I think you're pretty close to there. But I also think we can go 10-7. I think this team can go 10-7. I wouldn't go any higher, but I do think we're skilled enough to go that way. The most dreadful fear is we blow 2 to 3 games with Geno, then turn it over. We somehow muddle our way to like 8-9 and go, if only they gave the ball to Drew the first 3 or 4 games. My biggest fear is sincerely that this year.
I love that we have at least one of us who is so like on board with preseason hype. That's a prediction of 10-7. I mean, I think, yeah, it's possible to go 10-7, but I feel like I need to see this team on the field at least once during an actual game, not just highlights or, crappy phone cam from the upper deck.
Yeah, it's tough to know. And to kind of respond to what you said there, Clinton, just the idea that they could make the playoffs, it's not impossible. It really isn't. I don't think it's one of those snowball chance in hells kind of thing. You could literally sell me on 3 wins to 10 wins this season, and I'd be like, yeah, sure. That's in range, because I do think the defense can be much better than people anticipate. And I do think that, let's say they start with Geno. Geno, I think his ceiling could be that of Jared Goff or a Jimmy Garoppolo, somebody like that, right? Somebody who can take those system plays, make them happen. And that's the type of offense we're running now, right? With all that schemed up, easy completions, quick slants, bubble screens, all that stuff, right? Geno can do that, but that would be his ceiling. And you can see what that gets you. That means long-term that's not a Super Bowl. That could get you in contention and get you up in the playoffs and all that if they played that well, or if Geno played that well. I'm not even sure he can. But the difference is that Drew is closer to, say, Matt Stafford than Jared Goff, just in style of play. I know he does not have the production that Matt Stafford had in his first 3 years. It's close if you discount Matt's third year where he went off. Maybe this is the year that Drew goes off. I just think that the opportunity to have a quarterback that you can actually win a Super Bowl with a quality team around and a good system, the opportunity is there with Drew to win a Super Bowl that way going forward, if he can live up to that sort of potential of his arm talent, be a little bit of a gunslinger here and there, where I don't think Geno has that ability.
I just think as a coach, you can't say, okay, you have all the talent, so you automatically win the job. I think he has to go out there and show the team and show the coaches something to put him ahead of Geno.
Well, a couple things there. So I'll get back to the ahead of Geno part in a second. I don't think the comparison to Goff and especially Jimmy G is all that accurate, in the sense that those guys are routinely on time. Goff lacks some things. Jimmy lacks some things. A lot of it might be going outside the numbers, going downfield, et cetera, et cetera. But Jimmy G, for the most part, he'll have that horrible, throw to a linebacker that you're just like, what are you doing? And he will do that almost once a game. That's why he's a challenge. But for the most part, he's on time. He's on time over the middle. He's on time with different routes. Geno, to me, seems to just get off time. And we're seeing it in training camp too. Again, this is like listening to what somebody else says, some beat reporters there, but it's been like his whole career. He's not on time. He sees things a hair later than good NFL quarterbacks. And I'd still put Jimmy G into okay, you could be pretty good most times. So I think he's below that rung just to start. Brandon, to your point very quickly, on the gotta see it. Okay, I know it's a mock game and they're barely hitting and stuff like that. But the seam pass to DK, the drag to Noah Fant, I think another play to Lockett, I think it was Lockett over the middle, in that horrible camera angle we get from the boonies on the shaky camera. But he's still, again, he is using that middle of the field with anticipation. And again, on time, which I think is what's going to end up separating him as it comes down the stretch. My hope is that it becomes so evident that Carroll may want to do something, but he'll be compelled to be like, I've got to start the better guy.
Yeah, and I think he will if that happens.
And I think as far as Geno being, close to Jimmy or Goff, I wasn't saying he's there or that he can even get there. I'm saying if he's going to be successful with his style of play, he has to be just like Clinton said there, on time and playing within the structure of the system. Where Drew, he can do that, or hopefully he can do that. And then he also has the ability to play outside of the system just a little bit. And that's something that you need to take that next step. And that's why I'm a little more pro as to seeing Drew Lock out of the gate. Give him a full season if he can continue to prove it. Because what it sounds like through the reports of training camp and then through the mock game so far is just based on performance. It seems like Lock is performing slightly better than Geno. And then they go out on Sunday and give Geno all of the first team reps. Mm-hmm. Like, at what point does Pete's loyalty to Geno undermine his message of always compete? Because if Locke is always out there, or most of the time out competing Geno on the field, that's going to ring hollow with the rest of the team at some point, the always compete mantra.
Oh yeah, I think at some point that it would have to. And yeah, I think there's probably something to say about maybe giving Drew a little bit of credit coming out of that mock game, because the fact that he outperformed Geno statistically, and maybe like Pete said, he didn't have as many opportunities. Geno didn't have as many opportunities, but still Drew was going up against the first team defense more so than Geno was, which I don't know what that says necessarily, especially not being able to witness it live. But my concern is that either our defense is bad, or because I have a hard time thinking that Drew was so good that he tore up a really good defense of the Seahawks first team. That part I'm having a hard time just dealing with mentally.
I could see that. I could see why that would be tough to deal with, because you don't know. You're kind of guessing a little bit and trying to figure out what it is that
and the other thing,
and
sorry to interrupt you on this, but the other thing that is to consider about the mock game is that the pass rush, you don't have the same rules as in a regular game. They aren't allowing the pass rushers to sack the quarterback, and so there's not necessarily that same level of pressure to either escape or try and make something happen because you can't be touched. And so, we don't know if like Darrell Taylor, we heard that he was looking good coming off the edge in this. We heard, Tariq Woolen was another guy who showed up on defense. So we don't need to make this all about the quarterbacks for this entire show either. But I think there are some other guys to talk about coming out of this mock game.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was trying to lead into, because I wanted to ask both you and Clinton, Clinton first, Brandon second, just if coming out of this mock game and everything, what was the biggest highlight for you, or the player that you're most excited about, biggest positive, and the player that is the biggest low light for you, biggest negative?
Yeah, the negative, I don't know per se, because it's this, again, even with the ones out there was no Jordan Brooks, there was no Sidney Jones, right? So they were not out there, right? So that's two very key people that weren't part of the ones, and it's still more of a all pro Honolulu scrimmage than it is really anything, right? It's like, don't get hurt people, and let's run through stuff. I think the chalk answer has been Tariq Woolen, because just standing out, like making, even the play with the touchdown play was the breakup, right? He still made a play on that ball, and it was a free catch. So I think the chalk answer has been him from a sheer athleticism point, and seeing, I thought it was very interesting the way that they brought him in instead of Bryant. And again, it was like they want to keep him to that side of the field. So Artie Burns was on his side, and that would have been Bryant. So I guess it's Woolen. It's a little tough to take more than that out of this, because we just didn't, you get a lot of film here, man.
Yeah, and I think hearing the speed and athleticism that Taylor came off of the edge with was the thing that I was most excited about, just because of, as we talked about in the season expectation show, Adam, is that this team is going to go as the pass rush goes. And if Darrell Taylor can be that guy that can deliver routinely and get pressure on the quarterback, then I do have a little bit more optimism around the defense.
How about you, though, Adam? Anybody that was standing out?
I think those were all excellent choices by you guys. I think for me, the biggest negative was the fact that Eskridge not on the field yet again. And I really do think he could be a very integral part of the offense, and it really be a big difference maker when you're struggling maybe a little bit at quarterback. A guy with a little extra speed, some run after the catch ability, all that stuff. We need that second round pick to come through. So for him to not be on the field yet again and still dealing with this hammy thing after last year, which was a very injury prone year, that's a major disappointment for me. I'm really hoping that things can start to look up for him. I think that's an important thing. The positive for me. Right. Oh, go ahead, Clinton. Yeah.
Oh, no, on the Eskridge part, the piece that stands out for me this time around is, like, last year we didn't have Eskridge insurance, and this year I think we do, in the sense of, I know Marquise Goodwin's old, however, he's basically old Eskridge. That's what the dude was his entire career. He's good, man. He's still super fast, and if you're watching some of that stuff where Locke is humming along on that first drive, they got all sorts of misdirection coming right across the face of the quarterback, and they're using dudes in motion. So it's, I hear you. And on the biggest Eskridge guy being like, I think he's super important. I think they have backups to that this year. I hope they have backups. So if it's not him, they can still get what they want out of that manipulator, if you will, because last year, game one, what was that? The Colts? Is that right? If I'm remembering correctly? And it looked beautiful, right? We were so like, holy crap, if this is the offense, we are Shane the main brain, we are humming with Waldron. And then Eskridge takes the pop to the sideline. And so much of that, pre-snap stuff, motion pre-snap went bye-bye, or on the snap went bye-bye. And we've like regressed without him. So that's my point, is I think they were like, oh crap, we need some insurance plays on him this year. And I think they have at least one. That's my gut, at least.
I agree. At best, Marquise Goodwin is insurance. Even at his peak, he's fine. He's one of those guys that, yes, he has Olympic caliber speed. That's amazing. But it doesn't necessarily translate to football for him. Not the way it does for, say, like DK, or, I mean, you can go down the list of guys who are speedsters and have been hell of a player, throughout the league. I think Eskridge's potential upside is so much higher. And that's why it's a bummer for me that he's not on the field. But on a positive note, and I think this is something that almost nobody is talking about, and I think is a gigantic deal when you're talking about a team that might struggle to score points or at least punch it in the red zone. Jason Myers has looked fantastic throughout this OTA and this mock game. He is perfect. He's drilling everything. And you think about it, the first year that he came back to the Hawks was a great year. Then he had a down year. If we can get back to that Pro Bowl form of Jason Myers, think about last year. How many games could we, if we went back and listened to the pod or went back and looked at the games, how many of those games did we blame on Jason Myers? If we're trying to get to that 9-10 win area.
Right.
I mean,
they probably should have been able to win 9 games with Jason Myers had he not missed some key kicks.
So 2 games, right? So
right.
If Jason Myers is playing better this year, that's like an automatic 2 more wins that you wouldn't normally have.
Well, you could hope. I mean, there's still a
game. There's a lot of other. Yes, I understand that, but you get what
you
I'm
have to be in the
here.
games to keep, and close for those field goals.
I think I'm raising my ceiling, boys. I think I'm going 10 to 12 now.
12 wins. 12 wins with the good Jason Myers.
I just
you
think
didn't consider that, Clinton.
That is a massive bonus for the Seahawks this year. If Jason Myers can be lights out, they're going to need him. They're going to need him to be lights out.
But that's the thing you framed it with the last statement there perfectly. There is no wiggle this year. It's like they're not gonna. It's like, hey, they're down 14-10 third quarter, and they slog a drive together, and it's like he's trying a 49-yard field goal. Yeah, they need that. It can't be like it's still 14-10. We give them the ball back in midfield, basically, because then it's like lights out. See ya, game over. We will not have that. Like, I don't think we'll have that bounce back ability this year. Brandon, you were talking about it earlier with like, can you see any of these quarterbacks making huge comebacks? And again, even there, it's like, well, which one has the potential to have like a fourth quarter on fire? Again, I'm like, well, I think Locke can sling it more. So I'd give him the favor there as well. However, I'm with you that it's like, hey, they haven't proven that in their careers yet, that they could, that 10-point fourth quarter comeback, and all of a sudden we win the game by 4. So yeah, man, Myers, it's crucial he's solid this year. We are going to be really good on special teams, like we usually are. We need to be exceptional to make up for what are going to be some other deficits.
And part of being exceptional on special teams is having Ken Walker back there returning kickoffs.
Yeah, you laugh.
Shaking his head.
Oh no!
Why don't you want the backup running back taking?
I don't want my star running back to die with kickoff returns, man. That's why you have D. Eskridge or Bo Melton or anybody else. I don't ever want to see that guy return a kickoff ever.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you if I felt like we were going to have an offense that was going to put up a good amount of points week in and week out. The thing that can get you over the top is that third phase of the game that nobody seems to concentrate on. And if, and we have to see it, if Walker is truly dynamic as a returner, it'd be much like Tyler Lockett early in his career. Sure, I'm cool with him for the first year or two, like being the return guy. But after that, no, thank you. No, I'm with you at that point. I'm like, no, keep him out of the fray. But at this point, being, the second tier running back to Rashad Penny going into this year. And I know maybe talent wise, you don't believe that's the case, but I would take that. I would take that risk for this year if you're really trying to win games.
Look, if you're talking about a drive or two where you're starting at the 45, a little bit closer to midfield to where all you have to do is make a couple of first downs and you're in scoring position. That could be the difference in a couple of these games.
Right. And you let Bo Melton go do those. He can do those things. Bo Melton's real good. Eskridge real good. Heck, Marquise Goodwin still runs a 4.3. Real good. Let them go do those things. And yes, I realize he's second in the depth chart. I'm not even going to argue talent-wise. Penny proved out last 5-6 games last year. If he's healthy, he's fantastic. There's no arguing that any longer. And the carries are not going to be, I don't think they're going to be 70-30. I think it's going to be much closer to 65-35, even 60-40. And then as the year goes on, we'll see who gets the, red zone and then green zone, 10 yards and in touches. For my money, 5 yards out, I think Walker's going to be a better play than Penny anyway. I think he's going to be the more of the grind it out, get those tough yards kind of guy, which Carroll's going to like. So even if it's verging towards 60-40, he goes well beyond, in my opinion, a dude you could risk on kickoffs. And no, thank you. Let Bo Melton go do it and give up the 2 yards that Kenneth Walker might have gotten.
I just think it's a completely different argument when you're talking about a guy like Tyler Lockett, who is not really built to take hits over and over again, like a running back who, I mean, they condition themselves to pound it up the middle.
Their brains take, those new hats they're wearing, those whipping hats.
Those are great.
They're awesome.
The mushroom caps from Mario.
Yeah, the little turtle shell. Exactly. They're wonderful. And there's a reason they do that, because they don't want their dudes getting their brain scrambled. And the position that gets their brain scrambled the most in the NFL is our NFL running back. Those dudes take enough hits. He's not a 7th rounder. He would be a 1st rounder if this is 5-10 years ago. Do not put that guy on kickoffs. Anybody else.
Well, one guy that I was a little bit disappointed that wasn't out there, at least in terms of the stats here, and you can tell me if you guys saw him out there, but where was Penny Hart? I feel like I've been hearing Penny Hart hype about, he is such a great athlete. And I've heard you've heard the hype, Adam.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard the hype, and I've seen about 3 catches that made me excited since he's been on the team. I don't care. I call me when he's starting on a regular basis and making an impact week in and week out. Then I'll care about Penny Hart. I mean, he's a nice dude, and a lot of that stuff comes off as like hatred for the person. It's not at all. In terms of football and that sort of thing, I can't care about Penny Hart.
You can hear the hype over and over again, but ultimately you have to see production at some point before you get excited.
Yeah,
it's pretty fair, and it's gonna be a crowded room, right? I mean, traditionally, what do they keep? 5 wide receivers, maybe a 6th, right? So you just drafted 2. You brought in Marquise Goodwin, so you essentially have 3 new bodies there. So someone's got to go. So I mean, they're not keeping them all, and you have 2. You have 2 absolute locks, and then, well, really 4 absolute. They're not cutting D'Eskridge year 2 unless something drastically goes wrong. And has Freddie Swain shown enough in the last couple of years? I think so, right? Swain has showed up, and he's been there, and he's been the other dude who is.
But he's a guy who could lose his job if if there's other guys that show up in the preseason.
He could, but to the point though, it's like, and so could Penny Hart. And if you're going apples to apples here, who has shown out more? But I hear you, Brandon. They do, you ask coaches about the athleticism, and Penny Hart's name is like, he's the most athletic guy on the team, which is interesting, but I don't know. And they seem to love him. They seem to love him as a player. You know what though? I will say this happened for a couple of years where it was where Ballore was beloved by folks. And I was like, I don't see it as a fullback. I was like, I don't see it. Turns out he's hilarious. He's a damn good backup linebacker, and he's an awesome special teamer. Now I get it. So I have to also be humbled and say, there's probably things believe it or not, there's probably things I don't know about Penny Hart that they see that might be like, hey, this guy is worth keeping around on the 53.
Just like all the Phil Haynes hype.
Beefy boy.
Yeah. One of the things you're looking for is guys that are more backup quality players is availability. It's a part of talent. And Penny Hart is available. You got to give him that. And that's the same thing with Phil Haynes. He's going to be available again this year. So if he can be competent and available, that goes a long ways in making sure you make the 53.
Well, you guys know how I feel about beefy boy Phil Haynes. I think he's darn good. The trajectory I see for him is going to be like the Glowinski, the not Noah Fant, the George Fant. George Fant is the starting left tackle for a much better New York Jets team this year. And they moved, Mackay to the right-hand side. I think he got hurt today.
He got hurt,
and Dwayne Brown's in camp. They're supposed to sign him. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you got a guy. He's every time he gets a chance in beefy boy Phil Haynes, he could play center, he could play guard, he could play tackle, and he just gets like this second class citizenry, treatment. And I think one more year, he's going to be on another team and be like, whatever, starting for the Colts. And we'll be like, why didn't we keep him? And he's not going to sign a huge contract, but he'll be a millionaire at that point. But like, why didn't we keep him? I hope he gets to play, man. I think he could be just as good, if not better, than Gabe Jackson right now. And, I get the Seahawks probably don't want to take that risk, but in a year like this, I'd rather see the young dudes.
Hey, there's a lot to be said for the utility lineman. When you have a guy who is pretty decent at all the positions, that's super valuable. And there is something to be said for that. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't make the 53 this
year. Yeah, I'd be fine with it. I'm not a Phil Haynes truther like Clinton. So
it's true. I am. And I always bring up the Seahawks Nest pod guys. They are they are Phil Haynes truthers. Oh, yeah. And then
I think on the Nimhauser show. Yeah.
Yep. And Real Hawk Talk, he brought on a ton of what do you want to call them, deeper advanced metrics about why Phil Haynes has earned the right to play more. And whether it's the eye test or whether it's data don't lie, I just think he's not being used to his full potential. But again, there was dudes like, remember Nas Jones, right? He was really good for a year and a half, and then just Kaiser Sose just gone.
He didn't go anywhere and have success though, like some of those other guys. He was just out of the league.
That's true fact.
But all right, guys. Well, we can get on out of here. And I should say, as far as the schedule goes throughout this week, I am going to be on the road for most of this week. So there's going to be no flagship episode of the Seahawkers podcast, as we call it, but we do have a press conference recap from the mock game and the day before. We got PNW Prop Stars that's going to be coming out before the Steelers game.
Nice.
And we've got some what if with Phil Leidick coming up as well before the Steelers game. So still lots of stuff coming up throughout the week.
I want to say, it's yes, it's partly get Adam out of the mill, and maybe it's partly let Brandon take a week-long vacation, and there still be wonderful content for the flock, right?
Absolutely.
Look at these benefits.
Yeah, it's just you're just losing one show. I'm just giving people a heads up that it's just one show this week.
Yeah. So if any of you are keeping score at home, Brandon would turn his back on me first, and that show is the one that gets cut if he goes on vacation. So if you enjoy the idea that Brandon likes to stab me in the back, when you're done watching this episode, be sure to be sure to subscribe. Man, the YouTube algorithm, maybe that's why it's kicking our ass, because I can't even say the word. The algorithm is kind of kicking our butts a little bit. So let's try to figure it out and get the numbers up there a little bit. If you can do that for us, that'd be amazing.
Oh, I need to figure out how to do giveaways, like to just post Go Hawks, and I could find some way to so we could do our tiny pieces of Seahawks stuff through the YouTube, and maybe that'll boost the algorithm a little bit.
That makes sense. Look at that. Yeah. And there's the tried and true, subscribe and hit the bell and the whole thing. And then there's the grift, the grift by gifting. Put the Go Hawks, and Brandon will give you something. Yep. There you go.
There we go. Post Go Hawks down in the comments. We'll see if it works this time.
Nice. Awesome.
And I'll give away a tiny piece of Seahawks stuff.
Awesome.
All right. And if you want to get in the flock, become a member, go to getintheflock.com. And I've got some notes to read coming up on the next show. I'm not turning my back on you, Adam, because it's you. It's just because it's the longest show, and it's the one that I'd have to spend the most time editing. And that's the one that I decided I wanted to go ahead and axe this week. So you're welcome.
Okay. At two, Brute. Yeah.
And Brandon, where are you? Brandon, where are you heading? Where's it taking you?
Going out to Seattle.
Oh, very nice.
Gonna spend a little time at the lake out there this weekend, see some old friends. So it'll be a good time.
So we're gonna get some eyeballs on training camp, firsthand observations.
No.
No?
No.
Oh, so you're going all the way out to Seattle. You're not even gonna do your job. That sounds great. Good job, bud.
And with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go on.